Sports Limelight. Greetings, Drew.
Greetings, Bill. How are you?
Pretty darn good. How are you?
Wonderful.
All right. We've got another non-current eventsy, but always interesting topic, the Sports Halls of Fame.
The Sport Halls of Fame.
What comes to mind for you when you consider each sports Hall of Fame?
Ooh, well, they seem to be hard to get into. A lot of good players in those things.
They seem to be hard to get into, except for one. That's a little foreshadowing. For one of my pet peeves for one of the sports. Which sport do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with your pet peeve.
Okay. My pet peeve is the Basketball Hall of Fame,
Okay.
which includes pro and college and both genders. The both genders part is not the problem. The pro and college is. So many players were good in college. Let's face it, there are, hundreds of teams and so many different conferences, and it kind of offends me that a guy who had a good college career and then turned out to be a complete bum in the NBA is in the Basketball Hall of Fame alongside Reggie Miller, who just now got in, who should have been in years ago. Ralph Sampson went in this year, kind of a bust in the NBA. He wasn't totally awful or anything or a washout, but I think he went to the finals on one of the early Olajuwon Rockets teams and didn't quite live up to what they thought he would be. So kind of it would be like if Michael Olowokandi got voted into the Basketball Hall of Fame because of college.
Is this just a case of the sport being younger than the other ones or not enough players?
Here's who else got in besides Reggie Miller and Don Nelson. Okay, very good selections. Ralph Sampson, Katrina McLean, Jamal Wilkes, Don Barksdale. Who are these people? Phil Knight of Nike.
Phil Knight? Oh, man, I heard he's a good free throw shooter.
Yeah, his stats from, 04 to 07.
Yeah.
You got to put him in because of that, right?
Do they even have a voting of committee, or they just randomly pick players out of a hat?
Boy, it seems like it's the latter, doesn't it? Well, we've already spent more time on basketball than it deserves. To the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
What I just found out is very interesting is that the percentage of votes you need to get into the NFL is higher than the baseball one. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, 80% needed to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
75 for baseball.
Is there anyone not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame right now that you would put in? And maybe someone who got in recently that you wouldn't have put in?
I think it's pretty fair who's in there right now. It's only a matter of time before, the likes of, Brett Favre or whatever, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, but maybe Ricky Waters. He's got almost 15,000 yards from scrimmage and he's not in. 91 touchdowns.
Wow, that's more than I would have thought. The loudest drum beat seems to be for Chris Carter right now. I'm not going to be offended or anything if he does get voted in. I'm sure it's just a matter of time, but I'm not beating the drum for him either. Like, to me, for Chris Carter, it'd be interesting to talk to a defensive coordinator from that time and see, did you have to game plan against Chris Carter, or do you fear Chris Carter the way you feared even his teammate for a while, Randy Moss?
Maybe around the goal line, because isn't he the player that only catches touchdowns? Is that what?
Yeah, that was. I think Tom Jackson said that.
You wouldn't be opposed to Chris Carter getting in?
Nah, not opposed. I'm neutral on Chris Carter. After Curtis Martin got in, there wasn't anyone. Maybe Bill Parcells, I think, is the next person who needs to get in as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
He's the second greatest coach in Giants history now, to me.
He's the second greatest, huh? Tom Coughlin is number one?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow. Was what's his name? Reese, was he the manager when Bill Parcells was coach?
The GM when Bill Parcells was coach was George Young.
Okay.
Really turned around the Giants franchise. They were so down in the 70s and early 80s. Young and Parcells was a great team together. Giants have been really lucky with GMs going right from Young to a Corsi to Jerry Reese.
So are you saying that Bill Parcells would not have won 2 Super Bowls with this current Giants squad?
That is tough to say because they were two such unique situations that Coughlin was in. And on one hand, were they underachieving for much of the 2007 and 2011 seasons to get to the point where he was on the hot seat and they then went on a miracle run? Or, did Coughlin kind of make chicken salad out of chicken bleep, as the saying goes, and really coach these guys up and make them winners? Hard to say. But I think Parcells also, history will prove that Parcells' coaching staffs underneath him were better than Coughlin's coaching staffs. Gilbride, a good career offensive coordinator. for the most part. Fuel, I've had my problems with him, but, can't say anything about him now. Time will tell what the rest of them do, if they go on to be head coaches. But Parcells on his staff had Bill Belichick, defensive coordinator. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, him and his camera were really good.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Ron Earhart, go to offensive coordinator. Tom Coughlin was his receivers coach for the 1990 team. He had, I think, Romeo Crennel on that staff as well.
Nice.
So he had a lot of great help around him.
Well, moving on from the Giants, I know you like to talk about them.
How did we talk about the Giants for so much time?
Well, you brought up Bill Parcells, but rightfully so, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Thank you for indulging me there, too.
My pleasure.
Is Marv Levy in the Hall of Fame? I think he is.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
Right on.
Great speaker, Marv Levy. Now I want to go watch his Hall of Fame speech because I bet it was awesome. Not remembering it right now.
Well, moving on to baseball.
Yeah, let's. We save the most time for baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball, probably the most prestigious Hall of Fame, the most talked about Hall of Fame.
Probably the most controversial Hall of Fame, huh?
Yeah, especially now with the steroid guys coming up for election. Who knows what they're going to do? They passed up McGuire for a year already, but you wonder if they'll get in. And of course, Bonds and Clemens coming soon, who weren't truly convicted, but they did it. I mean, come on. So.
Come on.
Yeah. Is that a Peter Griffin?
Yeah.
Is there a guy that you think should be in that isn't in yet for baseball?
Pete Rose.
Oh, so you would put him in?
Yes. Would you?
I guess if there's a way to recognize his accomplishments, but also honor his lifetime ban.
What, like he can't go to stadiums anymore or something?
Yeah, I wonder what exactly. Obviously, he can't manage or anything, but
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm just not a purist, so to speak, but he didn't do anything wrong morally to the game.
Well, I can understand why they banned him. If you gamble on baseball when you're the manager, that's pretty murky because you could manage differently and it almost, and when the credibility of your game is threatened, it becomes like WWE or like the NBA. So, people can't believe in it anymore.
Yeah. It's not like his betting decreased his stats. Take away the betting. I mean, look what you have. You have one of the greatest hitters ever.
Right.
Greatest players ever.
Yeah, he still got all those hits.
And he's not, yeah.
A guy I would put in, Tim Raines belongs in the Hall of Fame. Don Mattingly belongs in the Hall of Fame. As guys who really were the most dominant at their position in the 80s. Andre Dawson is in, but I kind of feel like the 80s might still be underrepresented at this point. It hasn't quite been long enough where they get that nostalgia like the 50s and 60s and 70s have. But then long enough ago that we've kind of forgotten a lot of it. So.
Yeah, it's kind of in that gap. And it's right before the steroid era, so you get all these gaudy numbers right after these players retired. So it's kind of like on the overlooked.
Yeah, and the third guy who I think belongs in, Bernie Williams, got no love this year on his first ballot. And I think you mentioned that the steroid, that's a great example. Bernie Williams, his stats don't look nearly as good now compared to the era that kind of came, well, he was playing during it, but, I assume he's clean. And compared to those guys, his numbers don't look so good. But compared to, right before the steroid era, Bernie Williams is a Hall of Fame type of hitter with the kind of numbers. He won a batting title. And
he has a couple of rings, doesn't he?
He has 4 rings.
Yeah.
He has a few gold gloves. He has 5 seasons of over 100 RBIs, if you consider RBIs important. 6 years of over 20 home runs.
I can do that. Now, this brings me to some questions for you, Bill. What is the most important factor in deciding a player's Hall of Fame credibility? Is it championships? Is it stats? Longevity? What is it for you?
I think what it is compiled stats. What it should be is excellence. Barry Larkin, I don't think, was a Hall of Famer. He went in this year, but not a special player. He was just very good for a pretty long time. And like any Hall of Fame, the more guys you elect, the less meaningful the Hall is as a whole. Okay. So I'd rather have, it reserved for the truly great and have less guys in it than, let's let in these 5 guys this year because by default they seem like they deserve it.
So players who have set records, single season or career otherwise, but have no rings?
Yeah, I think they belong in.
You think so?
I don't think in baseball and football, I don't think you can fault a guy for not winning a championship. It's a bonus if you have won a championship, but unlike basketball where it's a minus if you haven't won a championship because you're one guy on the court is 20% of the team, and really more so considering he's the star. Like he's worth more than 20% of the team on the court.
Interesting.
So a guy like Patrick Ewing hasn't won a championship, something is lacking.
Do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. In spite of no rings. Really good. Yeah, put him in because of his college career.
Hey, man, he was a force in Georgetown.
Yeah.
He was the reason why the 85 draft was rigged.
That's right.
He should be in the Hall of Fame just for that.
With the envelope next to his bust.
Yeah, exactly. His envelope should be in the Hall of Fame. Frozen and everything. Now, what about players who win 2 or 3 rings in less than 7 years, but didn't have a very stellar career?
Like your Derek Fishers, perhaps. No, because then you have to induct every guy that played on the Lakers, or those Bulls teams. Like, oh, John Paxson has 3 rings.
Yeah, interesting. What about like Robert Horry? He has 6, right?
Ooh, that's getting closer because he does have 6, and he was pretty prominent on those teams, not by overall stats, but by making big shots at the ends of games. So do have to think about him. Plus, I think he was pretty awesome in high school, and I think that bodes well for basketball Hall of Fame voters.
Totally, yeah. So a guy like, what's his name, Jack Norris? Chuck
Norris?
What's his name?
Pitcher Jack Morris. Thank you for bringing him up, Drew. I think you'd put Mike Mussina in way before Jack Morris. Career ERAs. Who do you think has the better career ERA? Ooh. Now, keeping in mind, Morris played not in the steroid era. Mussina did play in the steroid era.
Oh, well then, I guess a good educated guess would be the Morris guy.
Ah, that is a fair guess. Morris career ERA 3.90. The league average ERA during his career 4.08. Or, one of my favorite stats, career ERA plus 105. So, okay, barely better than the league average for his career. Mussina's career ERA, 3.68. League average, 4.51. His career ERA plus 123.
Well, I would argue if you put Morris in the same era as Mussina, you'd probably have the same ERA plus with the steroid.
Well, I guess it would stay about the same because Morris would get hit harder, but the league was getting hit harder too.
Okay.
So the reverse of that, Mussina pitching in the 80s would be awesome, but the league average ERA to go up against is now better as well. So
I see.
Yeah, I guess. So it all evens out to me, I guess.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The ratio would still be the same.
Morris has the 1991 World Series, Game 7, the 10 scoreless innings, right? That's really held up for him. Great performance in a big game. Can't take that away. His career postseason stats, including this game, are 3.80 ERA. So, pretty much what he did in the regular season. And that signature game of his is balanced out by his going 0-2 with an 8.44 ERA in the following season's World Series with Toronto. So the Jays won that one in spite of him. And while Mussina has no rings, it's no fault of his own. Career postseason ERA 3.42, so even better than his career regular season. How about his own, if you're looking for Mussina's postseason signature game, it's the 2003 ALCS Game 7 when he came in against Boston with the bases loaded and no one out, 3 scoreless innings, keeping the Yankees in the game, and we know what happened from there with the Aaron Boone home run in extra innings. So Mussina's postseason resume is there too, and he closed out his career with a 20-win season, and that, again, something the writers would love, 20-win seasons.
Wow. Hey, one last Hall of Fame omission, Sports Limelight, Broadcasting Hall of Fame.
Yes, Podcast Hall of Fame. First inductee, charter member.
90% of the vote.
Ooh, that's pretty good. Adam Carolla only got 86.
Nice.
Sports Limelight, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon.